Welcome to another edition of Len's Burning Bush. I am Len Harvey. Before I bring on my guest for the week, I want to talk about what's really burning my bush. So, like every year, 2022 has been questionable to start at the very best, right? We have seen so many things. We continue to lose people that we grew up with, watching on TV like Bob Saget, or music. We lost the legendary Meatloaf, and now comedy. We lose again Louis Anderson, who passed away early at the start of the year. Plus, it comes on the heels of losing Betty White on the last day of 2021. And it even hits closer to home as one of my friends is really struggling. He lost his father, his mother, and his brother all within 9 days of each other. So certainly everybody is feeling this. Death is never something that is enjoyable or we even know how to really deal with it. But unfortunately, life has a born-on date and it has an end date. And we don't know any of the dates, when they're going to happen, and we don't know anything kind of in between. To quote the brilliant Ricky Gervais in season 3 of Afterlife, this great. I watched the show. If you haven't watched Afterlife, you really should. On Netflix, you wouldn't believe that a show of a woman dying of cancer actually can be funny, but it is. And in the show, in the last episode, he talks about this. He talks about life is like a ride at the fair. Exciting, scary, fast, and you can only go around once. You have the best time till you can't take it anymore. Then it slows down, and you see someone else waiting to get on, and they need your seat. That's what it comes down to. Brilliant and so true. I always love the fair, but I don't go on the fast rides. I just wait in line for the funnel cakes. So I don't know if that necessarily counts for anything other than that. But we need more fairs. We need more excitement. We need more to just enjoy life. Find something to do. Find someone to do something nice for someone. So in keeping with this theme, unfortunately, sorry, I know this is not the best topic for what's burning my bush, but I wanted to go through my recent experience with adding life insurance. Yes, life insurance, of course, because I want to make my wife, yes, a rich widow. That's my goal in life, to do that. So my policy of 20 years is coming due in February. And since I'm no longer 30, they decided to whack me for some really heavy monthly fee. So I decided, you know what, let me go through the process of actually getting a new policy. And I've begun this application process. And you would not believe the questions that they ask you about what's going on. It's kind of amazing to think. So they first asked me about flying. How many hours am I flying? Am I planning on any trips or doing it? And I thought, okay, that's understandable. But they really were getting to the meat and the potatoes of it, which is they thought I was actually flying the plane. They said they were talking about, am I going to fly the plane? Or, what's the situation? I mean, here's the deal. You don't want me to fly the plane. They asked me if I was planning on hang gliding or using a hot air balloon. My immediate response was, hell no. I'm like Casey Kasem, the late, great Casey Kasem. I like to keep my feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. So, of course, they asked me like 3 or 4 more times on this about flying. I was like, oh, my goodness. I kept saying no. So I finally finished the application online. And don't you know that the other day I get an email from the life insurance policy, and it basically said on this, it said, if I'm planning on flying, am I doing anything other than being a passenger? I'm like, for the love of God, can we just stop this already? I mean, I tried to tell them all through the process, no, I am not flying the plane. But apparently, maybe I just should have said yes. God knows what my premium would have been. But it's just like, I'm not taking flying lessons anytime soon. And maybe with all this, maybe they'll give me something else to do. With that being said, it's time to bring on my guest for the week. He is an actor. He's a broadcaster. He's an author of The Oliver Factor and The Name Dropper, making his second appearance. He last appeared, it's almost freaky, it's a year ago, almost to the day, in episode 42, the Bernie Sanders meme episode. Please welcome Tim Tyrrell to Len's Burning Bush. And Tim, I'm going to bring you on in the stream on it. Let's see if I could do this. It's not for some reason. Let's see. There you are.
There I am.
There you are. And let me get you a little bit better picture as we go side by side here on the YouTube channel. We can see it. But Tim, thank you for joining. I'm sorry I was so morbid, but we've just seen so much death in the last so long. The
There's
last
been
few months.
so much death, but I wonder where you buy your insurance from. The General? Where do you get that from?
I know it's crazy. No, I actually did. Of course, those ads on TV. Select quote. I did call, and it's Pacific Life is asking questions, and they're just like this. But the rates were really good. But of course, they want to know if you're flying the plane.
Yeah.
I am not flying the plane. Let me tell you something. It's like what's that George Carlin line? It's like they tell you to get on the plane. Screw you. I'm getting in the plane. Let Evel Knievel get on the plane. Right.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that I worry about. But I don't know. I don't know why they kept fascinating. But what was interesting is the woman was reading from a script, and she was just kind of typing, but she had to ask all these questions. It should have been like, if you are planning on really flying, then here's your questions. If you're not flying, if you answer once, no, that should be enough, right?
They should just start with, are you a pilot? No.
Yeah.
Okay. Skip to question 26.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going out. I'm not hang gliding. I'm not going out of a hot air balloon. I guess I understand. There was a movie with Ben Stiller. What was that Paulie something? I can't think of the name of it now. With Jennifer Aniston.
Jennifer Aniston, yeah.
Yeah, and it was a movie where life insurance, and he was selling life insurance to a guy who basically jumped off buildings and did all these things and had a high policy rate. But I don't know. It's hard enough being over 50 to get a life insurance policy, and then you got to go through all this. But they raised the rates like ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
The first policy I had, because I had it at such a low rate, because when you get it in your 30s, you don't think of it. And then part of me was thinking, what do I need life insurance for? And I have some already. Do I need any more? But again, my job is to make my wife a rich widow, and that's it. I had talked about this on a previous episode, because I don't know if you've ever seen this on Facebook, but unfortunately, if people pass away and then you see them like within 3 to 4 months, they've got a new boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, is it too soon? Right. My goal would be that my wife should have a date at my funeral. I think that would be.
I like that. That's a good idea. Does she have anybody in mind she wants to
invite? Well, I'm sure she does. Let's face it, Tim, she's been with me for over, 30 years. She better have somebody better than me. Coming in. Yeah, it's true though, right? What is it our business whether or not we whether it's too soon? It's too soon for maybe you, but not for the person that because we don't know the situation, right? So I did an episode on that. Now, I know you're a big tennis fan, and I know you watch you've been watching probably the Australian Open, right?
Yep.
You've been watching a little bit. Well, one of the things that I saw an article in the New York Post, which was kind of interesting. It's harder to watch the Australian Open now because of ESPN, right? They're having all kinds of, you need cable, or you need ESPN Plus, or they make it so hard to watch these matches anymore, right?
Well, I find it annoying, because how many streaming services do you subscribe to? Because I think I have 9 or 10.
Yes.
And just the other day, you talk about the Australian Open. I wanted to watch the Naomi Osaka match, and I turned on ESPN 9 o'clock and figured, oh, great, yeah. I can watch everything live. Nope, they cut it off an hour and a half later, and you have to go to ESPN Plus.
I know it's awful. I think it was Jim Gaffigan, the comedian. I don't know if you saw, he tweeted this week. He said, I'd like to get a streaming service that has everything and has all the streaming services into one. That's cable.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's the way it used to be. We had everything all in one. It's like, now I've got Netflix. I've got Hulu. I've got Paramount. I've got Disney Plus.
Yeah, me too.
What's the other? I'm trying to think.
There's Peacock Plus.
Oh, I got
AMC Plus.
Yeah, I just think there's too many pluses.
Yes.
But it's funny. Everybody says they're going to cut the cord, right? And you wind up with a bill that's higher than the cord you were cutting.
Exactly. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, because people don't understand. First of all, you need internet for everything.
Yeah.
People don't understand that if you don't have internet, it's kind of like we were going through this at work a little bit, where everybody wants to back up their computers into a service, right? Either a cloud service or OneDrive, right? If everybody is familiar with OneDrive.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, you back up all your stuff. But here's my biggest problem with that. It is not just like anything else. That's why I like to have at least Dish Network in the house, because what happens if the internet's out? You don't have TV, yeah. Right? I'm like, I have to have it, right? TV is like an addiction. But I just don't like the fact that if you have like OneDrive and you want a file, if you don't have any internet, you can't have it, right? Unless you have it backed up on a USB or something like that. So I think more and more you have to realize that the internet is not always going to be on. That's why I
Well,
look at it.
it's interesting too because there's packages now where you buy them and you don't even have a cable box. You have to download the app. Some cable companies are doing that now, where you
Oh,
get the cable modem for internet, but you don't actually have a cable box for TV. So if the internet goes down again, you have no internet, no TV.
that I don't like. I don't know about you, but that doesn't make any sense to me. If I'm paying you for the service, and the cable to me is the most, like Dish Network, I like because people complain you got the dish on the side, whatever, and maybe the reception, when it rains or whatever. But I still like having the dish,
Yeah, I
having
agree.
because again, I have all the streaming services also, but I think that I need to we need to make sure that we've got it. You got a little dark a little bit on your side. Did I do something? Did I hit you?
No, nothing you did. My ring cam just went out.
Oh, well, that's not good. The
We'll get
camera.
it back on.
Oh, that's okay. It's no big deal. People are hearing us hopefully on all of the platforms that we do. And this YouTube thing is new anyway. We're doing Facebook Live, and we're doing, I think we've on Twitter as well, doing the video portion as well. But Tim, going back to this last week, we lost Meatloaf. And I don't know about you, but I just love a lot of the songs. What are your thoughts of Meatloaf's the album Bat Out of Hell and some others? What are your thoughts?
Oh, Bat Out of Hell is a classic. It's just so many good songs on that album. And I remember reading an interview with him in Rolling Stone where he said he couldn't get signed because he had done the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And everyone just thought, like, well, you're not a rock guy, you're a theater guy.
Yeah.
And nobody would hire him. And then he put out that classic album. But I have to say, I've seen Meatloaf in concert a bunch of times. I've met him, I've interviewed him. I have never seen somebody who sweat as bad as Meatloaf did.
It's sad. It really is.
Yeah, I saw him on Long Island, New York, at Westbury Music Fair. This really tiny theater where it's in the round, and they filmed it for a VH1 special. And every song they would stop after it because, of course, this song's like 10 minutes long anyway.
Yeah.
But after every song, they had to stop and do hair and makeup again because he just sweats so much. But he put on a great show. He was a great performer, and I loved his music.
I did too, because you think about some of the stuff, if like, I wonder if we'll ever find out, I will do anything for love, but I won't do that. Does anybody ever know what that is? What's the one thing that you won't do?
I wonder.
I wonder exactly what he's talking about, but there's so many good songs, that he did. And the whole thing with Phil Rizzuto, putting him in the song, I mean, just brilliant. And you could just sit there and listen. One thing that I do like about technology today, there's a few things, as the old man on the porch here yelling and screaming at the children. I like the idea of if somebody does pass away and they're famous, you could go back, and I've done this with Bob Saget now. I'm watching some of his podcasts and going back and, listening to some things. And Louis Anderson, we'll talk about him in a minute. But, with Meatloaf, you can go back on YouTube now and just watch endless clips and listen to songs. I think that's what's great about technology now.
Yeah, I agree. It's amazing to think back in the day, if we ever missed an episode of, let's say, Full House, and if you missed it, you had to wait till the summertime to hope that they reran that episode that you missed. Now you can just go online and play it back whenever you want. It's great technology with that. We can do everything on demand.
It really is. And I was watching on HBO Max the Bob Einstein documentary. I don't know if you saw that. Bob Einstein had talked about, because Albert Brooks is his brother, which I kind of knew, but didn't, fully know that was the case. But he has another brother, and he just sat there and he said, we're sad, Bob's gone, but sometimes I'll take like 40 minutes and just watch like some old clips and sit there, and Bob's like right there with him. So it kind of makes you think again through that. But we lost another one, Louis Anderson, on Friday. He was 68, and just another treasure. Talk about sweating. I think one of Louis' funniest jokes, and he said, "I'm sweating. Pardon me. If I don't sweat, I'll explode." I think was one of his famous lines. He also hosted Family Feud, but I think he got really good recommendation or good views recently for something he did later in life. I think as well. He was playing a woman, I think, in another show, right?
In Baskets, yes.
Baskets. Yeah, I couldn't think of the name of the show, but just an unfortunate, to lose him, and only 68. That's it's a shame because funny man, funny man.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to have him on the show of mine. We brought the show out to Las Vegas about 8 years ago, and he was working on a podcast when everyone was really kind of new into podcasts, and he didn't really know what to do. And we spoke a few times about producing his podcast, and I really had a close. A couple of good conversations with him about his life and what he wanted to put in the podcast, and it was very sad when I saw that in the news yesterday. And we kind of knew it was coming anyway because everybody knew he was sick. I thought Paulie Shore's message that he put on social media was great about the family let him actually go in and say goodbye, because a lot of people don't realize Louis Anderson was a very liked comedian. People at the Comedy Store in LA, it's a family, and Paulie Shore's mom owns the Comedy Store, owned it, and they were very close for many years. And the fact that he did get a chance to actually go and say goodbye, and it was great that the family allowed Paulie to go in there because Paulie Shore was one of his best friends.
Unrelated, of course, you made me think when you brought up Paulie Shore and Mitzi, you brought up the whole Comedy Store. So in 1990, I went out to LA. And my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, Susan. We went to the Comedy Store, and it was like, this is great. We're going to see Skip Stevenson was there. There was a couple of other good comedians, but Paulie Shore, and he was a very new Paulie Shore. That was in 1990. I don't think he even did much of anything before he did his, there's a lot of Good Son-in-Law and after that and some other movies. But the funny story of this is not whether or not Paulie Shore was the comedian and on stage, but Susan told me that she goes, I just got out of the bathroom and some guy came in and he was like, yelling and ranting or whatever. So then he gets so later on at night, Paulie Shore comes up on stage. He goes, that's the guy that was in the bathroom with me. It was Paulie Shore. It was Paulie Shore, the Weasel. Was in.
Oh yeah,
I thought that was a good story coming out of the ladies' bathroom.
I often wonder what Paulie's Shore career would be like if his mom didn't own the Comedy Store, because he is funny, but there are a lot of funnier people, and I often wonder, but he's a nice man, and I have to assume he would have succeeded on his own as well.
No, I would agree with that. And I think you're right. It's all about, it's the same thing with like broadcasters. You've got Jack Buck and Joe Buck, right? Joe Buck is tremendous at what he does. But if his father wasn't Jack Buck, how does he get that job on Fox? The same with Kenny Albert or others, with Marv Albert as a father, but they turn out and they're really good anyway. But is it like Ian Eagle's son is now doing the Nickelodeon games on the NFL? Like,
yes.
There is nepotism at its best, but sometimes, it's all about taking the opportunity and running with it too. If you have no talent,
but it's getting through that first door. A lot of people do struggle. There are many great actors here in New York who have been doing off Broadway and even Broadway for years, but they never really got that break. And I think there are many actors who are, just as good as the ones that are on TV right now. And I'm like, how did they get it? And then you look at, that was a family member and they got the agent from that. And, Will Smith's kids, they never had a struggle. I love Willow Smith's new song that she has out, but she never had a struggle. She was immediately given a studio that her father owned to record her music. So how much of a struggle and how much dues did they pay?
Speaking of Willow Smith, there was a Jimmy Fallon when Bruce Springsteen did something. I whip my hair back and forth. Was that a song that she did? Right. So they had Jimmy Fallon playing Neil Young, and then Bruce Springsteen, and they were doing whip my hair back and forth. It was like, and it was hysterical because it's you got to search on YouTube, but it's like whip my hair back and forth.
That's great.
So that reminds, like you hit a couple of things today. That
a very funny story about Willow Smith, if I could.
Yeah, absolutely.
When that song "Whip My Hair" came out, she was on tour with Justin Bieber, and she was a rebellious 10-year-old at that point. And just one day, she decided she was going to cut all her hair off, and Will Smith had to say to her backstage, like, your song is called "Whip My Hair Back and Forth," and you're bald now. And I just think it's funny that she's a 10-year-old kid. She didn't think of it.
No, not at all. Why would you even think that would matter? It's just, it's amazing what people will think, but you're right. I mean, there are a lot of talented people that don't get, I look at the music business as a perfect example. So, if you've ever been to any concerts recently where, you look at an old band, you see maybe Tesla's out there, and there's a couple others, Tesla. There's a lot of great bands and bands that are like this. And then you look and you in the same show, you watch Def Leppard and you go, wow, there's like a huge difference. And you're back live. You're back all lighted.
We got some lights back. Sorry about that.
We got lights back for the people that are watching this. We have lights for Tim. Thank you, Tim. But anyway, there's a huge difference between like a Tesla's a very good band, and then there's the exceptional bands. I always like to say that you can learn how to play guitar and you could play very well and you'll recognize all the songs, but you're not going to just all of a sudden become Eric Clapton, right? I mean, There's a huge difference. So you have like Tesla and you have Def Leppard, and it's like here at, the top or the bottom. But you watch some of these musicians out there, they're so good and they never get that big break. Like I always look at Bruce, right? But I look at Southside Johnny as a good example of there's a very good talent, but he never made it like Bruce did. And why? Right? From the same area, Bruce is exceptionally talented. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to compare, but what are your thoughts of that? Like you got a Southside Johnny and you got Bruce.
Well, I think back, someone who was supposed to be the next Bruce Springsteen was John Cafferty, and he came out with the Beaver Brown Band. And everyone said he is the new one. When his first record came out, everyone would compare it to The River, and he had some success, but it just never carried over to the success that Bruce had. And I just think a lot of it is timing. Record companies and probably TV executives are known for this too. As soon as something is a success, and I bet you're going to see this with like Squid Game, as soon as they get a show or a genre that's out, they immediately hire all these artists that are very similar. But then by the time their records are produced or the movies are produced, everything has gone past it to the next thing. And then you're stuck with it. John Cafferty, I thought, was a great artist and a great band, but it's just, I think the timing was wrong. They were looking for Springsteen. And by the time they got it out, it was like, Springsteen was already exploded and they didn't want another Springsteen. And and you get that with so much stuff, is that they immediately react to what's current, and somebody has a quick hit. Billie Eilish. How many artists are out there right now that are doing that same monotone kind of singing that Billie Eilish did? And it's just like everyone's kind of over it already at this point, but they're still releasing these records.
Exactly. And that's the kind of thing, like Ed Sheeran does a lot of the looping stuff, right? And I've got a guy that I've had on my show, Javier Mendoza, who Hoboken. He is, if you ever watch him live, he's just amazingly talented, has great stuff, does both songs in English and in Spanish, and yet he can't get to that next level. Like, but Ed Sheeran did, right? You got, it's just a matter of, obviously Ed Sheeran's very talented. I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's just timing. You're right. It is kind of interesting on that. But like with Southside Johnny, you'd go to the Meadowlands racetrack at the time to watch him, and then Bruce is selling out the garden, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of the funny thing. But as far as a band, to this day, I say Southside Johnny and a few other bands have the best horn section that you can go see.
Now, on those lines, what do you think of the bands as they replace different members? Because New Year's Eve was the big story that Andy Cohen made the comment about phony Journey. How do you feel about that?
I think, I always like Steve Perry, but I'll tell you, I saw Journey and Asia, and I saw Journey and Def Leppard, where he was there, the new singer. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. But I'll tell you, it was very good. I don't mind it. I was a Van Hagar. So I like Sammy Hagar. I'm not one that I think that Steve Perry is a tremendous talent, and obviously the songs with him are great, but the guy now does a really good job, and he's a good showman. And if you've ever seen it live, have you ever seen Journey live now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I loved it. I don't know about you.
I just wonder if Journey would dump him if Steve Perry said tomorrow, guys, I want to tour with you guys again. How quickly would they dump this new guy?
It would be 10 minutes. They would dump him. Yeah. But he's done a great job. They actually, they talk about him on stage and they say how great he is. And it's just like, there's a lot of songs that Steve did that you can't hit those notes, but he does a really good job of getting there.
And Steve Perry has acknowledged that the new singer is doing a great job. I think it was the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He even said, like, kudos to him. He's doing a great job with it.
Yeah, it's like even with Def Leppard and Joe Elliott, he can't hit those notes that he did in the '80s anyway. So you're watching him. Yeah, it's Joe Elliott, but Joe Elliott can't be Joe Elliott. One of the bands that actually have done a tremendous job with a newer singer, or at least new-ish singer, is Foreigner.
Yes.
They've got a guy that's actually, it's funny because the other guys are like 70 and he's in his 50s and he's like the young golden girl, right?
Yeah.
But he's out there. I'll tell you, Foreigner sounds as good now as they did before because they've got a singer that still can hit those notes.
I laugh though when you see these bands that replace certain members, because if you ever look, sometimes you see online an ad for a venue and they're like, "Oh, this band's coming around, this band," and then you see like the Spinners and the Drifters, and the guys are in their 30s, and I'm thinking like, but that band's like 70 years old, so how is that possible?
I know that makes it crazy. Well, it's kind of like Queen. What do you think about Adam Lambert doing?
I think Queen is an unusual example of, I mean, how do you replace Freddie Mercury?
No, you can't.
And a lot of people say, okay, well, this is working, but they don't realize there were a lot of people that were a frontman of Queen before Adam Lambert. You had Robbie Williams was briefly with the band. George Michael was with the band. Yep. And I'm forgetting the other guy, Don't Shed a Tear singer, Paul Carrack. Yeah. Paul Carrack was in Queen at one point as well. So it took many stages before they got to Adam Lambert, but I think this is working. I just wish Queen would put out a record with Adam Lambert on lead vocals and put out new music with him.
I too. I think he's. I liked it. There was I think it was on Netflix. I believe there was a Adam Lambert or a Queen documentary recently with Adam Lambert. I think it's he does a really good job, and he's the first to tell you he's not trying to be Freddie Mercury. He's trying to be Adam Lambert, and there's nothing wrong with that because Freddie Mercury had one of the best voices ever. You can't replace that. So it's kind of interesting. But there are some bands, like I said, I like Van Halen with Sammy Hagar as opposed to David Lee Roth. I think he did even better because Sammy Hagar, you forget how talented that man is. They wrote most of the good songs after. Like, how does Van Halen go from great songs that they wrote to when they bring Sammy Hagar in, it gets even better, I think.
I agree. After Eddie died, there were a lot of executives that came out and talked about how Van Halen got signed, and they got signed on the strength of Eddie's guitar playing, and these people were saying how they would go to the Whiskey A Go-Go in LA and they would just go watch Eddie play. And many record executives did not want David Lee Roth in the band and felt like he didn't have the chops to pull it off. And Eddie, give him the credit here. He said, "No, this is the band, take it or leave it." And he was the one that really got that to work. So, I was a fan of Sammy Hagar as well. The Gary Cherone record I thought was actually a good record, but it went absolutely nowhere. But it's to each his own, I guess, because a lot of people just like the original band and that's it. I just think when it gets to the stage where you lose more than like 2 or 3 members, like just stop at that point.
Yeah, it's kind of like AC/DC at this point. I'd love to see Brian Johnson be able to come back, but it's kind of interesting with AC/DC to get back. That's a band that it's funny. You look at AC/DC, like the best 3 chords that have ever, Back in Black is just like, dan, 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 right? But every one of their songs is just like high upbeat. They might not be like the best band of all time, but if you want to get uplifted, if you can't get excited listening to AC/DC, then there's no hope for you. Right?
Yeah,
because that's kind of what it is. But I'd like to see them. But its problem is that the music today, and again, I'm sure they said this 30, 40 years ago, but it's like you're seeing more of these 70-year-old geezers out there performing because I don't think the music, there's a lot of good bands out there right now. Maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw Judas Priest about 2 or 3 years ago. And I have to say, Rob Halford, he should have come out with a walker because it was just that bad. And he had a big teleprompter in front of him. And I'm not talking like most bands have teleprompters now because you do. I guess when you're on stage, you could very easily lose your place. So they do have the teleprompter of the songs they're singing. This one was about a 60-inch TV that he had. I guess you can't see either, but he was bent over. He didn't ride the motorcycle like he normally would do. So, but it's sad. I still like seeing bands like that. Scorpions is one of the other bands too. Klaus Meine of Scorpions. It's like he's like 72 or 73 years old, but it's getting to the stage where I think it's almost time to wrap it up.
And that's kind of what I say with Kiss. I always love Kiss. I love Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley and everybody. But if you go to see them, and I saw them several times in the last few years, but the last show that I saw, I really thought that Paul Stanley finally started to sound like a Jewish grandmother. He was out there going, "Hello, Cincinnati, how are you?" And it's just, I mean, come on. I mean, it's time
I
to.
saw him in Connecticut in Bridgeport, and it's funny because you probably know because you've seen him. His big thing is, okay, Bridgeport, I got a question for you. Bridgeport. And my friends and I, we laugh about this all the time. Every time, like, hey, I got a question, Bridgeport.
It reminded me of Howard. You got to try it's just like from the scene from Big Bang Theory. He
reminds me of the mother from Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
Doris Roberts.
Yeah, Doris Roberts. He said, "Oh my God, now look at this." So I've got you on full screen right now on YouTube because I wanted to. You've got your book in the background there, The Oliver Factor. So I like that. Why not? You got to look at that. He's got his book out. The man is a published author, the name dropper. So you got anything else coming out? People, you can't leave them just hanging with 2 books.
Oh, that's so funny. You should say
that.
We didn't even talk about this.
No, we did not. That's why this is brilliant doing this, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a book coming out, which if you grew up in the 80s, you're going to love it because it's a lot of interesting facts about the 80s and a lot of trivia about things from the 80s, from movies to TV to current events that happened in the 80s. And it's going to be called 1,980 Interesting Facts About the 80s. And it'll be coming out early spring. So you can look for that in just a couple of months. We'll have that out.
Awesome. I'll be getting it. I do have the Oliver Factor. Loved it. It is, it's nice that there's a lot of TV shows that we talked about. And I remember having you on talking about it. And we talked about the Partridge Family. Yeah. We talked about Ricky. And I watched an episode and I texted you right after because I was like, you're 100% accurate. This is awful with Ricky in it.
Oh, I think they just thought they were going to go somewhere new and this was going to be the big thing. And the audience just was not having it. I just wish you had Twitter when that was going on because it would have been interesting to see the Twitter comments when Ricky came on the Partridge Family.
Oh, I know. It's awful. Like some shows, they just, they bring on and for those of you that don't know, Oliver was brought on the Brady Bunch and that started the kind of the trend. And then of course we started with the Jump the Shark and with Fonzie and all of that. But TV shows just bring on a character or bring on a baby. And there's another thing, right? You bring on a baby and you kill the show.
Well, it's interesting. Something just happened in the last 2 weeks on the TV show The Connors, which was the spinoff from Roseanne, is they had Becky had a child, Beverly Rose, on the show, and they actually just aged her, as many TV shows do. The kid's like suddenly a toddler or an infant, and suddenly they're 5 years old. Well, this kid's now sitting at the table, eating food with everyone else and talking. And overnight, this kid became 5. And, The Connors is pushing it as it is as a TV show. And I think now we're getting into that territory where we have a new Oliver Factor on The Connors.
Yeah, there you go. You could have an Oliver Factor Part 2 could be coming out maybe 2024 or something like that.
Oh, it's in the works.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Now, how can we get this? I know you've got your website, but just on Amazon is where you
can get on Amazon. Yep. You can actually go to the oliverfactorbook.com. And that has the links onto it. Also, Tim Tyrrell is timtyrrell.com, and you can get information. And then I'll throw the link up when the new book comes out, and you'll be able to get all the information there. But you can always search my name on Amazon and find out all the latest books coming out.
Awesome, and I'll post a link to where you can get the current books on this episode and on the Facebook page at Len's Burning Bush. One thing I wanted to leave you with, because I saw this and I thought this would be a perfect thing to talk about, you and I. Martha Stewart and Snoop Dogg together again doing the Puppy Bowl, the 2022 Puppy Bowl on Super Bowl Sunday, February 13th. It's one of those things that is like, to me, must-see TV right there.
I have to say, I find it very hard when they take 2 different people and put them together to try to make something work. I don't know why that seems to be working. And honestly, I don't think it is really working. I think if we looked at the real numbers on how many people watch the 2 of them doing their shows together, but I actually can't get past Martha Stewart as a person.
No,
having met her many times. Not too long ago at an airport, running into her, and just not the nicest person on earth. And I'm just not a fan. So I have a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth about Martha Stewart.
I am so sorry to bring it up for you. Then I should have known better. But she was in was it the Christmas Mom one? I think it was the second one, Bad Moms Christmas. I think
Oh
it was.
yes,
Was
yes,
she in that?
yes.
And she was miserable in that one. I was like, how do people like this woman?
Well,
She's 80
earlier
years
in the
old
week,
and
she
she's
did
miserable.
Ellen's final
Yeah.
show, and she actually talked about, and I give her credit for this, is that she talked about being in prison, and she made a nativity scene while in prison, and she's now selling it on her website. So I give her credit for that, but it was just such a flat interview that Ellen was trying to make jokes of everything, and
Yeah.
Martha Stewart was just like, I don't know if she's 80 now, so we have to give her a
Yeah.
little bit of credit there for that. But I don't. It just fell flat, and it's just like, the Martha Stewart party's over in my book. Hashtag.
Hashtag done. Done. Martha Stewart is
Yeah.
done. But one thing that is not done is the Law and Orders thing. It just keeps getting. I mean, Law and Order SVU has been on for what, 20 something. I mean, it just seems like it's
22,
never
I
gonna
think.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've got Mariska Hargitay is brilliant in it, all through the whole thing. But now Sam Waterston is coming
Yeah.
back to Law and Order as Jack McCoy. He will be back on February 24th with a new Law and Order. I cannot believe they're just, it's amazing when you come up with a great idea and they just keep doing it.
I agree. I'm excited for the original show because I was on one of the early episodes called Tailhook of Law and Order. Very small part, but Juliana Margulies was the guest star on the show, and I had a great time. I worked with Chris Noth too, and I'm sad about everything going on with Chris Noth because I can only talk about my experience, but he was very nice to me on the multiple times I met him, but also not his type, I guess. So kind of sad to know what's going on with that.
It is kind of sad, and I don't know. Speaking of which, have you watched any of the new Sex in the City?
I was never a fan of it, and I forced myself to watch it, and I'm still not a fan.
No,
it doesn't do much for me.
Well, I like the first run of the show. I got to admit, I did watch it, but this one, Susan and I tried watching a couple episodes, and it was painful to get through them. It really was.
Yeah. And I also, when you look back on some of the episodes, if you go and watch them now, you can kind of see where the cast didn't get along or at least Kim Cattrall. Because if you watch certain scenes, you're like, yeah, that wasn't working.
No. But I like Kim Cattrall. I mean, it's a shame that they had to.
Mannequin.
Yeah. She was in that. She was also in Porky's.
Yes.
She was the yeller from the top there. But anyway, I just think you and I could talk about this kind of stuff all day. I appreciate you coming on a second time. We'll have you on again when you get your third book out. We'll have you out to promote that, and make sure you get Tim's books on Amazon, because The Oliver Factor I read, really good. And what was the other book again, Tim?
The Name Dropper.
The Name Dropper, another one, and the new one will be coming out. Now, you can like Lens Burning Bush on Facebook at Lens Burning Bush. You can follow along at Lens Burning Bush on Twitter. We have the YouTube channel now, so like and subscribe on YouTube. If you're watching it on YouTube, we're also on Facebook Live, and we're on Twitter Live streaming as well. And you can listen to all the latest episodes. There's 94 of them now with you, Tim. 94 on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, all of that. iHeartRadio, TuneIn. You can even ask Alexa to play Lens Burning Bush. But as I've always said, make sure you say Lens Burning Bush podcast, because you never know what's going to come out right? You don't want, and a lot of people think it's kind of a religious show because you see the Moses in the background, and no, we're not talking religion on Lens Burning Bush. But anyway, thank you, Tim Tyrrell. We'll be back with another episode of Lens Burning Bush next week. So long.